when I want to show you. Yep. Good afternoon, everyone.
We're going to get started now. So my name's Karen from Virtual Excursions Australia, and we're very excited to be here again today to do a follow-up on some of the training we delivered in 2020. What we've seen a lot of at the moment is people doing amazing work last year using virtual excursions in a variety of different ways. Some of you are already doing programs outside, but we have had a lot of organisations go, well, how do I transition from inside to outside? We thought one of the great ways to do that was actually to have someone here that's been doing that very thing. So we will have Liana and Danielle from Sydney Olympic Park joining us shortly. But I'd just like to introduce everyone that will be involved with our session today. So as I mentioned, Karen Player, Virtual Excursions Australia, and with my Australian environmental education hat on, because my passion is doing learning outside, and virtual excursions is certainly not an obstacle to be able to do that. And I'll let everyone introduce themselves as well and what they'll be helping with today.
Okay, hi, I'm Ben Newsom. I am from Virtual Excursions Australia, co-founder as well with Karen. I also run physics education, a science outreach company. We've been heavily involved in distance learning for many years, also through the Center for Interactive Learning and Collaboration in the US, and also part of the Professional Learning Network for the International Society for Technology and Education's Interactive Video Conferencing Group. Big mouthful, but we're heavily involved. We might all share later on about what people are doing at a global level. With education and outdoor environments using remote learning. And I might really briefly throw to a person who's making this happen all in behind the scenes, moderator. Jackie, do you want to say good day?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jackie. I work with Ben at Physics Education, and I'm going to be the moderator for this session. So I'll be in the background sort of looking at settings and changing your views and hopefully making the session nice and seamless and smooth. As I'll throw to is actually quite interesting because Liana, Danielle, your names are opposite. So I guess I will go to Danielle first, but Danielle is currently named Liana.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name's Danielle, and I'm the Manager of Education at Sydney Olympic Park Authority. And I'll be just showing you our experience with virtual excursions out in the field, even though we can't get out today because it's torrential rain, but just sort of talking you through what our experience has been over the last 12 months while we've been sort of pivoting towards these live and interactive virtual excursions. And I will now hand over to Liana, who I've got my iPad that I'm holding filming Liana. So Jackie, if you can spotlight Liana now, that'd be great. Liana.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Yes, my name's Liana, and I'm the Lead Education Officer at Sydney Olympic Park, working alongside Dan. And I am also the film crew, as you can see. I've got all the stuff here. So yeah, we'll be showing you around how we turned our excursions into virtual excursions today.
Excellent. Thank you both. And we will be throwing to them just in a few moments as well. So what we'll be doing, you can use the chat if you want to share any links of things that you might be looking at as well, or just chat to the other attendees. If you've got questions as we go forward, put them in the Q&A. So Jackie's going to be helping us moderate the Q&A and passing those questions across to any of the panelists as we go forward. So use the chat just to sort of talk amongst yourselves, and use the Q&A if you've got specific questions for the panelists as we go forward. Now, for those of you that are not in Sydney at the moment, we have a huge amount of rain at the moment. So it's a great way to show how you need to have contingencies when you're doing outdoor delivery. So Sydney Olympic Park will talk about a few of those as we go forward. So we're not necessarily able to get outside because of the wet weather today. So we'll be, you know, and these things do happen. You always need a contingency plan. And I think that goes not just with outdoor delivery, but also with virtual excursions as a whole. It's always good to have a plan B. Hope you don't need to use it, but if you've got it up your sleeve, it means that you can be a lot more flexible when some of those challenges that do arise. So guys, we're going to pass back to Danielle and Liana from Sydney Olympic Park, and they're going to share some of their experiences of their online delivery and their transition from an on-site field study centre to being able to deliver some of their amazing, you know, full day programs and segment that up as part of their online delivery program. So I'll hand over to you guys now, and I look forward to hearing all about it.
Thank you so much, Karen. And again, thank you everyone for having us into your workplace today or your home or wherever you might be. Liana and I are situated today at Sydney Olympic Park, and I will show you in a moment where that is for those of you who are international. And but I would like to start, as we always do, with an acknowledgement of country. So I would like to pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the land that myself and Liana are on today, and that is Wongal land. I would like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and those emerging, and also to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who happen to be here viewing this session with us. So we here at Sydney Olympic Park, as a little bit of a background to let you know that we deliver science and geography excursions to school students from kindy right through to our leaving year in year 12. Before they head off to university, and we also do some university programs for pre-service teachers. So the purpose of our education centre here is to have students experience hands-on field work. So we have a beautiful wetlands and an amazing urban centre that we deliver these excursion programs through, and the kids get to you know, gather data about the natural wetlands, and they're outdoors and they're feeling the mud and they're smelling the flowers and they're licking the leaves and they're doing all these amazing things. However, we had to stop that. Exactly this week, 12 months ago, our delivery world was flipped upside down. Schools were told they were no longer allowed to be out of school, so no more excursions. And therefore, what are we going to do? We've got a team of educators here, and we've got all these teachers who needed still to have a program of knowledge for their students who have assessments coming up and tests and things like that, assignments, all based on the field work and the knowledge that they were going to get with us out here at the park. So Liana and I had the privilege of, well, two things. One is working with Virtual Excursions Australia over a number of years now, and Karen being part of our team here at Sydney Olympic Park. And secondly, a couple of weeks prior to COVID hitting, we had Sydney Distance Education out here who were filming an excursion with myself and Liana just doing the field work, and they were zooming that back to their students in their homes. So it was just this really amazing sort of all these sort of synergies and events that happened that led us to very quickly being able to pivot into live and interactive virtual excursion experiences. So just to let you know a little bit about what we did in terms of trying to prepare for that, we had to think, how do we change a hands-on fieldwork experience that would go usually for 4 hours into a live and interactive virtual experience that went for only a short period of time? Because no student, well, we certainly wouldn't want to put students through sitting there on the other side of a camera listening to us for plus hours. It's just not possible. It's not a good experience for them. So we came up with a model for each of our programs. Our Year 12 programs we would base on 2 hours. Our Year 7 to 10 programs between 90 minutes and 2 hours. And our primary school programs, depending on where they are at primary school, early stage 1 right through to Year 6, we would make it from a 45-minute session through to a 60-minute session, some of them an 80-minute session. So we had to think about the duration and what is suitable for each age group. And in doing that, we also needed to think about how are the different ways that we were going to continue to make it interactive. So how would we be able to have the students know about field work if they weren't out here holding tape measures and quadrats and magnifying glasses and things like that? So what we did was essentially, with Liana and myself, we had a team of 3 of us really doing the production. And we worked through the worksheets. So we got worksheets for the students when they're out here. And now that they're not out here with us, the teachers wanted the same content. But how are we going to do it in 2 hours? So essentially, Liana and I would head out into the wetlands with one other delivery person. And we would essentially, Liana would be the eyes for the students. And either myself or one of our other educators would be the person physically doing the field work, and then the students would learn from that. And at the same time, they were able to put the data that we were gathering for them into their worksheet. So we very quickly flipped to that, but then there was another 2 hours of theory and information that we had to get to the teachers to get to the students. So what we developed was essentially 3 different packages for teachers to be able to purchase. One was a gold pack, and that was whatever the duration was of a virtual excursion. That was then coupled with a resource booklet for the teacher. Now these ended up being anywhere between sort of 12 and 20 pages of information that we would usually provide to the students when they were here on site. Information about how we manage the wetlands and how the buildings in Sydney Olympic Park are built to be sustainable, and all of those sorts of theory aspects that you get to do in depth when the students are here with us. So we actually had to basically write a book for that, for every single program, and also include content that we would otherwise not have shown. So sometimes it would be a richer amount of information that they would be getting, and we could provide them with videos and links to our website to get further information. So that was the gold pack. And then on top of that, we had a silver pack. Now, a silver pack was where the teachers could just buy the teacher resource pack and deliver the excursion program to their class through their own knowledge with this teacher pack. So that didn't include the virtual excursion component. And then, of course, there was the free or the bronze pack, and that was free. And that was us just guiding them through all the content that we already had free that was available on our website, including videos that were also freely available on our website. But it was just a document that contained the information in one place for the teachers to refer to that and then go on and find it all in our website. So within, I think it was about 3 weeks, by the time the Easter break came around, we then started to run our virtual excursions on the other side of that. So with the help of our resident expert, Karen, who heads up Virtual Excursions Australia, we were able to get together all of our resources to do it. So that brings me to the technology that we're using. And today, what you can see is me wearing this headset. So technology, it's very, for us, really basic. So it's about us being able to, firstly, we are not filmmakers. Secondly, we are not IT experts, although Liana somehow comes out with some amazing technology hacks that we just created before because we were getting all this feedback. And so with those two things in mind, and budget, a state government run agency, we don't have a very big budget. And the fact that we need to be mobile when we're out in the field, we need to, and sometimes for 2 hours, we can't be carrying heavy equipment with us. It needs to be durable and it needs to be mobile, so that the person who's actually filming myself or filming into the wetlands is able to hold that equipment for that period of time. So I'm just going to give you a run through now of what we actually did purchase, which is very simple, in order to run these programs. So now I'm going to, Jackie, I'm going to now put the camera, my iPad, this is weird, this feels a bit like the Inception movie where I'm not quite sure what where I am, and I'm going to unmute Liana as well. So
Hello.
you can see we're just simply using an iPad. These are iPads that we already had for the some other program material that we use. Great question, Jason. We're using 4G connectivity at the moment. However, we do have Wi-Fi. So one of the things we just did then, as we were connecting to this session, was Liana and I were both on Wi-Fi here in the Education Centre. And it didn't work, it started to freeze. So we realised only one of us could be on Wi-Fi, or we both had to be on 4G. We chose to both be on 4G to make this fairly seamless. Having said that, sometimes when we're using the 4G and it's in the afternoon at about 4 o'clock, 4:30 here, when all the kids are getting home from school and jumping on their devices, playing their games, doing their homework, it freezes as well. So we had to be mindful about when we were delivering our programs. Fortunately for us, most of them were run during the school hours from 10 till 2. However, we did have some international programs that we ran in the afternoon, and one of them did actually fail because of the connectivity dropping out, because there was too many people using that. Probably as we go on a little bit later, we might be able to hear from Ben a bit more about that, and about connectivity and bandwidth and things like that. Right, so now we go on to the, over here is the tripod. So just a really lightweight tripod. It can extend.
Like so.
It's called a Ulanzi.
No, that's the clamp.
Oh, that's the clamp. So we had to buy a clamp that would fit an iPad, and then that clamp attached to a very lightweight tripod. That
the tripod is UB size. UB size.
UB size is the tripod, apparently.
They're both from Amazon.
They're both from Amazon. So we basically just Googled and took potluck that they would be okay. So obviously that extends. So Liana can extend it out, or it can also the base. If you're carrying it around and you just want it to be a stick, the base also collapses. Okay, so there we are.
Okay, there you are.
Alrighty. So that's that. What else have we got there, Liana? We also have a battery pack.
Battery pack, yeah.
So this is for when we're out in the field and we might have 2 back-to-back 2-hour programs, and the iPads just won't last that long. So a little bit of a tip is either take 2 iPads or take an extra battery pack as well. And Ben also reminded us before about a cover. Liana, do you want to go and grab the cover? So because we're out and about, we We need to put a cover on the iPads. We haven't got one here because we're not heading outside today, but we just buy a durable cover for the iPad as well. The headset that I'm wearing here is Bluetoothed. So this Bluetooth to just one, we've actually got two headsets. Now I'm going to turn off Liana's camera, and then I'm not going to get feedback from that because I can hear myself talking. So with the headset, we bought two headsets. Liana's got one on at the moment actually, but unfortunately we could only Bluetooth one headset to the iPad and not two headsets. So if two of us wanted to speak to the students at the one time, we've got to turn off our headphones. The other person's got to turn their headphones on and then wait for the Bluetooth to connect with that iPad, and then they could talk. So look, it does, it could be sort of 15, 20 seconds. The reason we had the two headsets was basically because of COVID. We didn't want to be swapping headsets, between us and sharing and possibly spreading germs, which here we were very fortunate not to, be under circumstances that other countries are under, but we still had to follow those COVID safe practices. So that's the headset. So that's a headset, the iPad, the tripod, the clamp, and the cover. There's a question. Yes, what's the next question? Okay, yeah, excellent question. So what we found was with the state government authority that we were working under, they purchased us a Zoom account. So we used Zoom, and fortunately by the beginning of schools connecting up with our live and interactive virtual excursions, they had passed Zoom as being a platform that they could use safely. So we were really lucky in New South Wales that all of the teachers that we engaged with used Zoom. That for us was the easiest way to do it. We never had any issues. However, we did, and Karen also worked with a school in Victoria, North Melbourne Public School, and they were on WebEx. What we did there was we asked them to invite us into their session. So whereby usually we would set up a meeting in Zoom and send that link to the teacher, and then they would, click in on it on the day and come in. The WebEx was different. They invited us, so we entered their meeting room. That also meant that we didn't need to understand a whole range of different platforms. So if there was anything different, we would always ask the teacher to invite us in on that. Okay, so I think I've covered all of those things about the technology that I wanted to talk to you guys about. So in the customer service side of things, what we had to do, because we were working with schools, we were very fortunate that most of the time we were Zooming to a teacher, and the teacher was putting us up onto the big screen, and we weren't dealing with teachers who were then getting their children or their students to connect at home. We did on a couple of very early instances and in Melbourne. What we did then in terms of safety and security was that we ensured that they all had, we were still using a Zoom meeting, so we didn't use a webinar. So we had to ensure that the students, the teachers let the students know that at all times they had to be on mute, and they also had to be have their cameras off. The only times that they didn't do that was when the teacher was discussing things with them, and then it was also up to the teacher to tell them to turn it on or off. So for us, Zooming into a classroom was a lot easier because we were dealing with a teacher, and then they had that ability to either, some of them wanted to have their camera switched on so that we could see the students, and they'd have the camera towards the classroom, and so we could see them, which was really great because, as teachers and as educators, it's, you know, you work off that, you know, the acknowledgement from the students that they're either getting it or they're not getting it based on their facial expressions. So for us, being able to see the students was really, really helpful. We created risk assessment documents. Karen helped us with this, based around what these schools were also working with in terms of their safety and security for online use. We also organised a session with the teacher before we ran the virtual excursion. So I found this incredibly helpful, and the teacher did as well, because they could relax. Once we knew that we had done the test, the tech test, so they would use the same link that I sent them for the meeting, for the virtual excursion. They would click on that. In the classroom that they would be using when we ran the virtual excursion, we could test audio, visual, them muting themselves, unmuting themselves, testing the chat, and that helped me sleep at night, that's for sure, knowing that all of those things were fine. But I did also ask teachers that if they had access to an IT support person on the day, just for the beginning when we were, you know, hooking up in the morning, if they could be present, just so that, you know, a lot of the times it was, oh, my sound isn't working, why can't I hear you? And it was as simple as they just hadn't hooked up the big interactive whiteboard to their sound. So it was just little things like that that would come up, and if an IT person was there, it was really helpful for them just to overcome some of those problems. What else have we got here? Yeah, the meeting was really important for the teachers. And then the field work activities. So what we needed to do was get out into the field, and unfortunately we can't do that today, but I'll just show you a little bit about what Liana and I did when we were out in the field. We've set up something just off the veranda here. So Liana's going to film me walking, and I'll sort of lead you along of what we did in a virtual excursion. So after an introduction, which I would always use, we've got this wonderful mapping system called a geographic information system. And we would just do an introduction on here about where Sydney Olympic Park is. Now, Liana also has a share screen of our location, and I'll just show you another little thing that we've used. So with a map, she's just sharing the screen now. Got the map up there. As I'm talking about a range of different things, Liana can draw them on the map. So she's just going to, I'm going to say, right, we're in Homebush Bay. That's a body of water that is currently feeding the wetlands. What I'm going to do now, Jackie, I'm going to start the video of Liana actually doing that. I don't know if you can now spotlight my camera on what Liana's doing. So what did that come from, Liana? Okay, I'm going to unmute you.
So when you share your video, your photo, there's a little pen just here, and these are all the things you can do to it. If you choose whiteboard as well, all of your users can also draw on it as well. So which is really cool. But I got to go back. There we go, back to my image. And now if Dan says something like, oh, this is Wentworth Common over here, I can choose the color. Maybe I'll do red, and I can circle that.
Okay, thanks, Liana. So that's a really basic share screen, and where you can just you know, show them as you're talking about things. And what I was also going to talk to you about was the lighting, which right now is really bad. Yeah, move us back a little bit. So first of all, it's torrential rain out here and it's really dark this afternoon at 3 o'clock. But secondly, you know, we don't have the setup in here like, you know, like a movie studio. So we don't have any lights. We've just got these ones that are overhead because we're usually out in the field. So 95% of our virtual excursion is actually outside. So apologies for this downlit. I know that, you know, movie makers amongst us would just be, you know, cringing at the moment. And apparently I've got to keep my chin up. Anyway, what we're going to do now, I'm just going to get Liana to follow me outside. So when we're doing a program, I've introduced them, I've done an acknowledgement, and we've done an introduction as to where we're actually located in Sydney and Sydney Olympic Park. So as we move from one activity to another, there's a couple of things that we do. One of them is we can take a screenshot of all of the worksheets that the students are working on. And Liana's going to show you now. So I would say to the students, okay, we're about to head out to our next activity and we're going to have a look at quadrats. Quadrats are our 1 metre by 1 metre pieces of equipment, and we're going to count the number of crab holes inside those quadrats. So I'm going to get you to turn to page 1 and you'll see 2 maps on there. Now that's got nothing to do with quadrats, but that's the screenshot that we've got there. So can you turn to page 1 for me to get ready for our next activity? And then for Liana and I, it's about it's usually about a 3 to 4 minute transition from one location to another. And this also, if I stop talking, because they're by now sick of hearing my voice, if I stop talking, it gives the viewers the opportunity to have a breather and to stretch their legs, go and grab a glass of water, or have it, you know, go to the bathroom. And this also gives them a little brain break, because what we also found with doing these sorts of things, and you know, we've all been in Zoom meetings. I mean, you guys have been listening to us now for close on 45 minutes, and it's really intense. It actually takes up you're processing a lot more when you're not on, you know, when you're not sitting around a table with people, or out in the field walking and talking with people. When it's concentrated and you're looking at a 2-dimensional screen, it's just harder to process. And we've got to remember that these are young people. These are sometimes little people, and we need to give them the break. So we'll put on a share screen. It may not be the worksheet. For the little ones, it might be a pretty picture of a frog. So Liana can show us it. Or an eel. We saw some cool eels today in the wetlands, and some little swans, some little baby swans or cygnets, and hoping the eel wouldn't eat the baby swans. So anyway, there's our eel. So when we're working with the little ones, we'll show some cute pictures to give them a break and have a look at things that they would have usually seen when they were out here with us in the field. Okay, so Liana's got me back on live. We will pretend, I'm really sorry you didn't get an experience of being out in our beautiful mangroves today. Liana's just showing you out there. It's all dark and stormy and rainy. And the wetlands would have been really beautiful for you guys to see. So I'm really sorry that this quadrat is just getting thrown into our garden off the veranda and not off the boardwalk and down into the mud where you could have seen crabs and crab holes and eels and all that sort of stuff. So essentially, if I was saying to the students, right, we're now on page 1, we've got a table there, you're going to collect the data in that table, focus them on that. What I find is if you give an instruction, you need to stop and just have this what in the beginning becomes awkward silence because you can't hear anything. There's, you can't see the kids flicking through their booklets and getting to the right page. So there's no cues from your audience. And that's really difficult. But what we've learned over time is if you ask the students to do something, you need to give them time to actually do it. And remembering they're not adults, flicking from page 4 to page 6 can sometimes take, 30 or 40 seconds. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it just does. So we just need to give them that time. So I'll say, okay, go to that page, find that table. And it might be that I've also got the worksheets in my hand and I'll bring those worksheets, right up to the camera and actually point it out to them. Then we'll say, right, explain what the field work is, and then Liana would come over and I'll say, right, what we do is we throw that quadrat down and we count the number of yellow leaves in there. So I've got, let's have a look here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 yellow leaves and 1 piece of rubbish. And then I'd ask them to write those 8 yellow, well, it's crab holes, write that information or that data down in their field work. And then after the 2 hours we've been out there, we've done all the field work and we've completed the program. So essentially, they're sort of the experiences that we've had in how to try and deliver a program where the students still have a decent enough experience to be able to see, first of all, fieldwork techniques, secondly, collecting data, and then thirdly, going away and summarising that data and having that extra teacher pack resource for the teachers to assist them to pull it all together. So that is, that's our programs. Are there, I can't remember what I was going to do to wrap up. I think we've pretty much all covered everything. We'll head back inside because we're starting to get wet. Are there any questions or anything that I might have missed, Karen, Ben, as we work through? Oh, I know what else I was going to talk about. What's the time now? Okay. I was just going to talk about the so as I said before, we're not film producers. We're not movie makers, and we've got to try and remember, if you're on the other side of it, if you're viewing something that we're filming, how would we like to see it? And I know that if I watch a movie and the camera's jumping around, I actually get motion sickness. So what Liana has to always endeavour to do is move the camera really slowly. And for me also, which I probably haven't done during this presentation, but for me to also slow down my voice. So Liana was just cleaning off the iPad there because it's just gotten all wet being outside. Yeah, for me to slow down in my speech, for Liana to slow down when she's, moving the iPad around to show the students what is out there in the field. So that was just another thing that we, sort of really had to think about and learn as we went. But look, as I mentioned before, the other thing was not using videos. So we do show one video to the students when they're in here on site, and we realised that we couldn't press play on the iPad and show them as they were watching and do like a share screen with a video. So how we overcame that was by providing all of the links to the videos or Vimeos, YouTube clips. We provided that all to the teacher beforehand, so the teacher could then either pre or post virtual excursion could show that content to the students. So yeah, if any of you are thinking about using videos during a Zoom as a share scenario, it really doesn't work. It just freezes. Sometimes you can get really short clips, maybe sort of 10 seconds, but nothing beyond that. So that's just something that we learnt pretty quickly, that function wasn't going to work. And I think that's probably about it. I think I've gone through everything that we've sort of experienced over time. But of course, we were really, we were just so lucky that we had Karen Player to help us out, who heads up Virtual Excursions Australia, and the support of Ben and Jackie in physics to be able to roll out these virtual excursions so quickly, and also to change one of our major education events where we get 3,000 students on site over a couple of days. We were able to flip that into a virtual event with the which is called the Youth Eco Summit. Liana can go and advertise that on the over there. We were lucky enough to have Physics and Virtual Excursions Australia support us through that process as well. So I know without them, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did as quickly as we did, or feel, as lucky as we were to be able to have them and feel confident in what we were doing. So yeah, so that's it from us and our experience. And yeah, be happy to answer questions, or if Ben, you have any questions, or Karen that might also be part of our experience that I could talk about.
Yes, thank you so much for that. It was great to get all of that insight. And I wanted to know some of the challenges that you faced changing that. Were there challenges with teachers kind of going, oh, I'm not sure about this, or were there sort of, I know you mentioned things about the videos and having not being able to use those in the session, but are there any other challenges that you discovered during your journey?
Yeah, so I think definitely our biggest challenge was condensing the programs and knowing what to do, what to teach. In terms of feedback from teachers, we asked them, what is it that you really want? We were really customizing almost every program. We had a lot of, and this was a challenge in terms of just time. Usually a school books in, they have the worksheet, they get the risk assessment, they get all the documents, and then they turn up on the day. There's not always a huge amount of, preparing them. And for the virtual excursions, because it was new to them and new to us, it was really this conversation between the client or the customer and the provider. So everything was customized to begin with, and that's really how we learned. So we learned through the teachers telling us what it is that they needed for their students. So that was one of the challenges were those discussions and making sure that we could give the teachers what they needed.
Hey there, I thought I'd say hi as well. I mean, you guys do a really good job with this. Totally. And one of the things that crossed my mind, which I suspect might be sort of crossing people's minds as they listen in, is the internet and how much fun it cannot be. How did you handle, I'm assuming during at some point in time, you've had an internet drop out to the device, but you've got 30 kids on the far end. How did you sort of handle that sort of thing if that might happen?
Yeah, look, I was actually really fortunate that the 2 times it happened, and look, there's only 2 times out of, I think we ran close to sort of 40 or 50 virtual excursions. Liana was here both times, and she's like the best problem solver. One of the times you ended up hotspotting, didn't you, Liana? So hotspotting off the mobile that she had. That was one where we were in a location up by the Parramatta River, and we ended up having to hotspot there. And the teacher at their school, in one instance, also had a similar issue. However, her phone was, had the best coverage, and we told her to hotspot from the phone. So that was one thing. The other thing is moving from Wi-Fi to 4G. So we have Wi-Fi in this education centre, but at the beginning of a virtual excursion, when we know we're going to be moving outside, we make sure that we're on 4G all the time. Because we found if we move from Wi-Fi and then we lose the Wi-Fi and we have to then, the iPad connects into 4G, it'll drop out. So we just made sure, and Liana reminded me, every time we did it, Danielle, have you got the Wi-Fi off? and I'd have to go and check and turn it off. That's how we overcame that issue. We just always stuck with 4G if we were moving from an area where it would have usually been Wi-Fi. So, yep.
No, thanks. I thought I'd definitely ask that because I know you would have had it, and it's definitely the case. It actually reminds me of I was lucky enough to visit the Alaska Zoo when they were setting up their roving unit, and they decided they wanted to run everything on Wi-Fi, so they put Wi-Fi repeaters throughout the place. Which obviously, if you got funding, happy days. If you don't, it's a little bit harder. Especially if you're trying to shop for one of those in a mangrove.
We've tried.
Oh, you've tried?
We wanted to. We asked, but no, it just didn't happen.
No, that's really cool. So I mean, into the future, can you see any slight changes of how you deliver this now that you sort of had the massive change that you had to do last year? What could you imagine happening into the future now things are settled and we can sort of plan a little bit?
Look, for us, I think if it ain't broke, don't fix. Don't mess with it. But what I would like to see is just some attachments on our iPad, whether they be Bluetoothed or physically attached, so that we can do some zooming in on some of our organisms. That's the one thing I'd just like to maybe step up just slightly, the technology. But again, we've got to be really mindful of what's going to work in the field, what's too heavy to handle, and fussing around too much with those pieces of equipment when we're in the field, because we have to try and make it as seamless a process as possible so that the experience for the students isn't them sitting there waiting for us to get our technology working. But that's just a really small thing that I would probably like to investigate if we moved forward with the virtual excursions. Which, having said that, we'll definitely be providing virtual experiences for students internationally, Sydney distance education, so students for inclusion reasons, students who aren't physically able to be on site, and regional students and interstate as well. But we still want people to come here and get their hands dirty and experience nature when they can.
Oh, need to unmute, turns out. Yeah, so no, that's fantastic. I mean, let's be honest, there's always these bells, whistles, and shiny things we can buy, but they're things you got to get and you got to remember, and it feels like more components to fail over time. I mean, actually, I do have a genuine question. I'd love to know, how was lighting in the middle of winter in the mangroves? Did it cause any dramas, or was it okay?
At the end of the day, it's starting to get pretty tough. It starts to get dark, and it's dark in there at the best of times. So look, sometimes we don't have the best lighting in there, and therefore the footage does go slightly blurry because the iPad can't focus properly. So lighting at those times would be fantastic, but we're also in an environment that has dappled light, so you're going that's a really good point, Ben. We have to make sure that when we're outside that the sun is on my face and not behind me, because then obviously they can't see anything. So Liana and I, when we're showing things as well, we need to make sure we're either completely in the shade or completely in the sun and not halfway between the two. So when you're working in an outdoor environment, either be in one or the other so that the camera can keep up with that, so it doesn't have to deal with that contrast.
Yeah, camera gymnastics, I can imagine it. I do know that if you're listening on any, you're wondering what could you do if you had a bit of funding, you can find camera housing these days and small little lights that you can strap onto it to make it all happen. But like you said, it's budget and also making it simple, and that's a really simple solution. Don't stand in the dappled light.
Yeah.
I like that. Awesome. Now, I don't want to just to take the particular stage here. I thought, Karen, do you want to, is there anything you'd like to ask? Or anyone from the audience, please ask while you've got Danielle and Liana here.
There was a question that came through through the Q&A, just a little bit of extra information about the Zoom licenses that you're using. and the package. So Ben and I can go into a little bit more detail, and I can talk about the Virtual Excursions Australia package that we have as well. But from your organisation, what was it that you guys needed to help you get across the line with that? I think you probably covered some of the bandwidth side of the question, but yeah, certainly the Zoom license side.
So you mean in terms of getting a Zoom license, or which one we have? So
I think probably a little bit of both, that you sort of, not using basic, having a paid package, and what your organisation needed to deliver your programs.
Yeah, okay. So we had, so we purchased the Pro package, and I think that allows you up to 9 licenses, I think it might be. So 9 people can be, but then you have to pay for each of those licenses under that account, and each license costs, I think it was about between 20 and 30 Australian dollars a month for each of those licenses, because I know that we purchased the maximum number when we were doing the Youth Eco Summit with you guys, Karen and Ben, just so that we could have those licenses. And that allowed us to have, I think, up to 100 people that could be, per meeting, that could be in that meeting, and up to 9 people could have a license within Sydney Olympic Park Authority. And the cost was per license around about between $20 and $30 a month. Beyond that, we got a Zoom room as well. We found we didn't need it. I'm not quite sure what, Karen and Ben, you might know a little bit more about a Zoom room, but I do know they were really expensive, and they were very quick to sign us up. Love Zoom. They were very quick to sign us up. But then it took a long time to also cancel that room when we wanted to cancel it, even though you're not locked into a 12-month contract or anything like that. It did take a couple of months for them to finally take it off our account. So that's our experience, here at the park.
Excellent, thank you. I think the Zoom package and licensing and what will work for your organisation, to give you an example from my personal side, I've just got the normal Zoom package that's just a Pro, just a single account, and I can do everything I need to do with that, and I can have meetings as long or short as they like. And what we've done for Virtual Excursions Australia, for all of the people that are paid content providers, you have access to our Zoom meeting room, as well as the Zoom webinar room. We're using the webinar at the moment for this event that allows us at the moment up to 100 participants, but we will actually up that to 500 where needed. So for organisations that are small, you don't have access to either a Pro meeting or webinar account, Virtual Excursions Australia can actually help support you to deliver programs for you as well. So that's something that that we're doing to help the smaller organisations. We are finding larger organisations, kind of picking and choosing which kind of Zoom package is going to be the right one for them. And it is a little bit of trial and error. I think all of us probably went quite big with Zoom to start with, and then realized, well, we didn't need multiple licenses if we're not running multiple things at the same time. We don't need the Zoom room. Some organizations, well, I don't need a 500 seat webinar if I'm only using that once or twice a year. So there really is no perfect answer to that one. And in terms of the bandwidth question, Ben will probably add something into that as well, but wherever possible, use a plugged in data cable. Even if you are outside, if you're not outside far and there's no issues with getting wet and issues with it with the cable, you can get 20-meter data cables. You can do certain things just outside, and you are hardwired in essentially, and then it's essentially using 4G or 5G, and you can get boosters for those as well. And then following on from that, worst case scenario is your Wi-Fi. And I love the examples, Danielle, that you've had using the hotspot on your phone, because it's actually going to give you better 4G than trying to use the Wi-Fi in some spots. So okay. Did you want to add to the bandwidth or Zoom question there, Ben?
It's pretty straightforward. The more G's, the better. as much content, as much internet as you can possibly have, the better. But you know what? Even if you're doing things in an indoor environment, I've had our local network go down in my little special video conference room, and I've hotspotted to my phone. So honestly, having that off one side, having your phone on silent and with hotspot ready to go, and the password ready to go is not a bad idea, because it doesn't hurt to be ready. Definitely.
Excellent. Does anyone else have questions for Danielle or Liana at the moment? Otherwise, we'll just go on and talk a little bit of tech for the last few moments.
I will actually answer live as well. This has definitely been recorded. So if you have to run away, and I hope you can stay for the last 10, 15 minutes, but we are going to have this on the Virtual Excursions Australia website. So you can check it out. And I definitely please recommend reaching out to Danielle and Liana too to find out more, for sure. So is there any questions before we go? Oh, here we go. Oh, thank you. There you go. Back. No worries, back. All good. All right. So yeah, so the plan we're thinking about was maybe going, right, well, what is the future? What could happen as you get more and more bits of materials around? And the reality is that the it's as long as your budget can handle, I suppose. I mean, I've been wondering, and I'd love to throw this to the group if anyone ever would like to try this, but I've been really kind of keen to bring drones into outdoor education, because you can share a screen of what's going on, right? So how is that it's just another camera endpoint? And I can imagine, Danielle, that really being really cool. I mean, obviously there's drone licenses and all the stuff we've got to do, but at some point, this would be neat for outdoor, because it now, yeah, Danielle's kind of like that. The licenses.
Yeah, we just can't. We can't do it over the wetlands. It's an exclusion zone because they're a protected environment.
Yeah, that's so tough, isn't it? I mean, actually, it just reminds me, like, I was going to go right. So where can you do it? And so from there, it could be interesting. And there may be people listening on in and go, you know what? I mean, I'll give you an example. A friend, I think he's still on the call here. You know, he's probably gone to sleep, because I do know Jason, who is writing things in the chat quite well. He's a great educator in remote learning. I do know through the CILC, so Centre for Interactive Learning Collaboration, I was speaking with Jan, who heads it up, and she said she was speaking with a national park that has a cave system. And they were talking about putting Wi-Fi repeaters down the cave and running a drone straight into the cave with lighting as a maybe. I don't know if they ever pulled it off, but wouldn't it be cool? Anyway, so I suppose for now is it's often thinking about, well, what could be the next step? What could you do next within safety and license protocols? Anyway, now, well done, Danielle. This is really cool. So, so obviously you're a Zoom user and you use WebEx. Did you find yourself using any of the other different platforms? Because let's be honest, there's honestly like 100 of them.
One word, 2 letters, no.
All right, no worries. Yeah, so they've all got different flavors. We all like different flavors of ice cream. Sometimes the one flavor you don't like as much. And I'm not going to call out any particular platform. But I suppose
we're very vanilla. We're very vanilla here, Ben.
That's okay. But it is worthwhile to know that if you are presenting as someone who does enrichment into schools or whatever, is have a little play with different platforms if you get the chance, because every now and then if a particular school just say, you know what, we only use this. And so if you haven't played with it, it makes it difficult. But let's be honest, eventually, as long as they can get the camera up and it works, it's usually okay. Awesome. So is there any other further questions that popped up? Not looking like there. Jackie, is there anything that has crossed your mind while you've been moderating away? I just thought I might just throw to you as a quick ask.
Only that I've added a little bit to the Zoom license discussion, just about what each thing is, because when someone asks, oh, is it really necessary, my response to that would be, it really depends on what you're trying to do. And if you are looking to have big public events, or if you are delivering to a school where all the kids are coming in from home. Often webinars the best way, just from a child and cyber safety perspective, because it would be so hard to control hundreds of people in the webinar. Sorry, and if they're in the meeting and all their videos are on, and there's no way you can go through all those thumbnails and try and look for anything inappropriate and trying to shut that down as a moderator. But with a webinar, you only have to worry about your panelists making mistakes. So that's much easier. And it could just, sometimes it's not even deliberate, right? Sometimes someone has forgotten to take down a poster that's not appropriate to the age group that they're presenting to, or something like that. And it's not always deliberate. And yeah, it just, that cybersecurity for us moderators especially is just, it's so much better. It's a peace of mind.
Hey, Danielle.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
I just
Ben.
thought of it. I just realized I actually do have a question around tech. See how you're walking away right now? I want to know how
Yep.
far can you walk before it doesn't connect to the iPad?
Ah, nice one. Yeah, we think it's about 20 meters.
I feel like we could almost test it in a live training event.
No, because that means I have to go out in the rain.
Yeah, that would be mean. But I mean, that's one thing to be aware, right?
Yeah,
the reason why I
absolutely.
asked that is we picked up and we have used it, and we will use it for our face-to-face events. Just because I've got it now, we use Rode wireless goes. So you got like a transmitter and receiver. One you hook to the phone or iPad or whatever, and the other one is a microphone, and it can handle quite a distance, but eventually it can't go so far. But being aware of that, I suppose another question I've got to ask you is, did you ever have like crazy windy days or just messing up your mic?
Yeah, we did have some really windy days out there. So these mics were actually really good with the wind and the little soft sponge around them as well. But we did actually find that if there was excessive noise coming through, we just had to put our back to the wind and make sure that our body was protecting the microphone from the wind, or just put our hand up to our mouth and protect it that way. Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's funny. No, actually, one of the people who are one of the founders of Virtual Excursions Australia, Steve Bancroft, is a sound engineer. He's a sound guy, and it's often something that we often miss because we often worry about the visual, but sound does matter. And actually, what we found, especially in the old days, I mean, 12 years ago when we were presenting, you could run at low bandwidth and you could freeze and tear, and people could handle that as long as the sound was okay. Once the sound goes, it's really bad. And actually, Karen just put on a video. I think Karen actually got something to say on this.
I have to say the importance of audio has rubbed off on me over the years of working with and living with Steve. And one of the things that I'm going to share in the follow-up after this session is not only the recording, so you have a record of this as well, but we did do some training and we have a little video about audio that Steve did in one of our training sessions last year. And he does talk a little bit about that outside audio as well. So I can include those pieces of information for you as well. But I have to say, the headsets that Sydney Olympic Park are using are pretty incredible. They really are very focused on what you're hearing, and they do block out a lot of external noise. And the microphone is actually really, really high quality. So it's quite good in a lot of outside conditions. Whereas if you weren't using a headset and you were trying to use a lapel or a boom or something, you really need to have quite a big, what was it Steve's called it, a dead cat?
Dead cat.
A dead cat over that to really protect from the wind. So I think the idea of having the wireless headset is an absolute win, and I think you guys came across that quite early, and yeah, it's worked really well. I've used them out there as well, and it takes a little while to get used to, but I was super impressed about the quality of them.
100%.
Yeah. The one thing, so these are HyperX. If you want to get the details to put on to give to people after this session, we can hand it on to you. But the other thing is having to hear yourself. So you might have noticed that I actually, during the whole session, have one ear off and one ear on, because otherwise you can just like hear your own voice in your head like you can with any other headphones on. So when you're doing that for sort of 2 hours, 2.5 hours straight, it's always nice to go half and half, except Karen has also experienced those very hot days where we get very sweaty ears when we're using these in summer, which is not nice, but necessary at the same time.
I was just thinking that that's also potentially a safety thing too, because you might be too immersed in what you're doing, and if you're not aware that something, now you might be walking near where a car might be going past. So now you're doing outdoor stuff. So it's probably not.
Didn't think about that. That's right.
Yeah, and that's why I guess another one of the safety issues out on site there is that there is usually another person, so there's a bit of a spotter as well, because it's easy to back up, and you don't want to topple into the mangroves.
And have errant things happening in the background too.
Excellent. Are there any other questions that have come through either from the chat or in the Q&A? This is your chance to have the experts from Sydney Olympic Park to answer all of your questions.
While you're thinking of a question, I'm going to throw this out to the group listening in too. We're talking in the air right now. There are places that do this underwater. And so if you're wondering from an Australian point of view, if you go to Reef HQ does an amazing job in a full-blown reef aquarium in Townsville, where they've got an actual scuba diver, all rigged up, all able to talk to people live, and they've got a dry side diver and a wet side diver, I suppose is what they call them. So Fred will be underwater diving, and they'll have someone, usually Julie, will be out there presenting to the public. So I actually know of a site that does this in Rochester in New York, where they teach mathematics using diving. So talk about kids about volume of a cube, swim the volume of the cube with kick cycles. Very interesting. But yeah, so just think about it's really just limited by your imagination and what equipment eventually and budget and time you've got to do it, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I have to say with Reef HQ, they have been one of the longest running content providers, I think, almost in Australia. I think they started in sort of 99. So they were very, very early adopters using, I think, would have been ISDN lines back in the day. And they present all around the world with what they're doing. So certainly for underwater, and they know their stuff. So very, very useful if you are looking at doing those kinds of things, and other options as well. If you're doing sort of wetlands and you want to get in the water and water bugs, that you can get some waterproof lenses and things like that. That'd be maybe one of the attachments that Sydney Olympic Park may be looking at in the future. And then they can attach as a secondary camera, and you can put it in the water to have a look at some things. It may well be that that's something that's previously been collected. There's absolutely no issues to control your outdoor environments if you need to. One of the things I do is bring outdoors in. So I do leaf litter sorting, but I do it inside. I have live frogs and live stick insects that I show, but at the moment I'm using them, to control my environment. I'm actually showing those inside. So there are some really great ways to bring outside in if you can't get out to the outside, and you may well look at sort of that kind of water environment is maybe just not going too far out, but dipping something in to be able to get those underwater shots as well. So there's certainly some it's a little bit about the sky's the limit, really. If you can think of it, there's usually technology to help you do it. We're always happy to help you guys lead you in the right direction. I was going to say push you in the right direction, but that's not exactly what we're after. Support you in your journey.
100%. And also think, doesn't always have to be the main presenter. I'm thinking of other sites that will have several presenters. Obviously, there's a budget situation there, but you could have someone in the control center, and then they throw to the out in the wilderness, wherever they are, and they get all of it, and then someone just simply spotlights, or we just use the active mic, active speaker situation too, and that can work too. But look, I hope you've enjoyed this particular session, everyone who's still here. Definitely go to the Virtual Excursions Australia website. So literally type in Virtual Excursions Australia website. There is a lot of training materials there that will help you out in past events, as well as you'll get a bit of an idea about who the content providers who are currently on there, and also how to get involved. And Danielle, is there any last things you'd like to leave anyone about what Sydney Olympic Park has been doing?
Just that, please feel free to contact myself or Liana if there's anything that any of you would like to experience out here, or even just learn from what we've done through our experience of the last 12 months. Thank you, Ben. I think you referred to us as experts, which we are absolutely not. We are on this roller coaster ride. We're just doing the best we can and trying to, still bring that experience of being here in the wetlands and at Sydney Olympic Park to our students so that they can, tick off their outcomes and meet their assessment needs. But yeah, please, feel free to get in touch about anything. And if you want a program delivered to people that you might know that are wanting that sort of content, we're doing the Youth Eco Summit. We're doing an on-site and a virtual event this year. So we're doing a bit of a combo of both. So if anyone wants to be involved in that as well, we'd love to have you along. So yeah, thanks for listening to our experience today.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I really just want to just let you guys know how much we appreciated having both you and Liana with us today. And really, as you said, it is really that roller coaster, that journey that we're all on together. And it is, there we go, face to face. And it's all about being able to share those experiences. So thank you for joining us from Sydney Olympic Park, despite the weather, which I can see out my window is still pretty bad. And we will be sending off a lot of background resources, following up with the video as well. And Virtual Excursions Australia is hoping to sort of be running a training session every 2 months or so in between our meetings. So once every 2 months will be our meetings, and every other 2 months will be a training session. So please let us know your ideas of what you'd like to know more about as well, because it is all about us learning from each other, and that's what these kinds of sessions are all about. So yeah, it's always great to get together and listen to the successes. And I have to say, I love the shot where you guys are at the moment. It looks almost like you're in the wetlands. So you could step right in. So guys, if there's no other questions and no other comments, thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you all again in the future. So bye from us.
Bye.
See you later, everyone.